Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for February 12th, 2019. Q's up 1.48% and the SPY 1.27. We just put in the close here. So very bullish day here on the Q's and SPY. Got the gap up and the gap up held. You can see the SPY is already clearing the resistance that we said we would need to go to a bullish bias, and the Q's are right up at it, basing at it. We'll see if we get through there tomorrow. So just to recap, what we were watching is to see if this hourly could break into a downtrend, but was not able to do so. As soon as we took out this pivot on the Qs here, right, we had to shed the bearish bias, and then once we get over resistance, we are bullish. So the SPYs have done so already, showing a little bit of relative strength to the Qs, and then the Qs will have to clear, and the SPY is already ready to go. So on a pullback, we can be bullish. If this bases more and breaks out, it will be bullish. So nice trend day on the Qs and SPY. Really no other way to interpret today's price action. Pretty bullish. Where would we lose the bullish bias? Underneath this pivot here on the daily. So this is just a buy setup on the daily. So pretty straightforward pattern here. 166.50 on the Qs there, and on the SPY, I'll be looking at 267.80. Okay, and if we break that, then we will shift back into a neutral bias. We will be bullish going into tomorrow. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on stuff from today. Very nice gap bully on the UAA. Okay, this is another one. If you click on the link below, that leads to more videos. You can look for other videos talking about this strategy. We're looking to play this long as soon as it clears resistance, okay? Did so right at the open, which makes it even better. We want to see these bully the gap right at the open, break through the previous day's high, and then a nice follow through on the UAA. So this was a gap up and then a gap down, and then the gap down actually got bought. So this one kind of playing around here as far as whether or not people were positive or negative on earnings. Ended up very nice gap bully and nice run up on the UAA. So a lot of stuff moved up today, as you might expect when the market's in a power trend. All right. And then the TROX was a nice call out from Sammy there. Failed on this buy setup. But what I really liked about this, right, is that the volume came in here. And whenever you get a pullback and the volume comes in like that, a lot of times that's a sign of capitulation there. Okay, so it was coming in. Maybe somebody who got it in here finally gave up. They're out. And then that is the bottom. I used to think of volume like that much in the opposite way, that, oh, somebody really smart with a lot of money is putting a big bet to the short side on this red bar here. But what I found is a lot of times this volume is more capitulation than anything, actually ending the move down. So this little breakout here, right, was a nice move. I know a few of us in the room played it there. Was looking for a little bit more on this to retrace more of this red bar. I think it topped out at 1083 there, but just trailed out on the hourly underneath that red bar there. Not too bad on the TROX. Good gap too, as you might have seen here, clearing over a couple tops there, right? So nice gap on the TROX. This was one of the better gap ups. I initially this morning had the VRNS as the favorite gap down, but it didn't end up clearing was the problem. So this, once I saw that, was a bit disappointing. If it was clearing the lows, you know, I would have been all over this. Would have been a tier 1 gap if it had cleared the lows, but it didn't. And you know, that's really, really important. It's something that in my checklist for the open, I always want to check: are we clearing that support? And I go back to this example because this is one that, you know, really sometimes it does cost money to learn some of these lessons, you know, and this was a good reminder. You can see the low here was 32 and the low here was 32. So I like this gap a lot. Should have a lot of shock value, but it just didn't break that support. And look what happened, right? Got bought. And on this day, I actually took a stop, trying to anticipate that if it broke 32, I might not get filled. So I went after a little bit early. And so, you know, it didn't break support. And so, you know, that kind of gap down, you really needed to break support. That was the case on the VRNS. So this stayed a no play for me, even though this was initially my number one gap. It's just in the pre-market, it moved up a little bit, you know, even though it might have broken in the pre-market. Once it opened, it never was able to get through support. So that was a focus for me at the open, just never got a play on it because the gap didn't clear. So that's fine. No harm, no foul in the VRNS. Just a little bit disappointed in the quality of the gap because I thought we had a tier 1 gap on our hand, which would have been really, really nice. It's the first one we would have had in a while, but it didn't turn out that way. As I came on the mic before lunch, we were looking at this Netgear, another one. I think someone said they made 7 Rs on this, so a really nice job if you played it, right? I think we've talked about day in and day out relative strength, relative weakness. Look at this basing at the lows, staying at the lows, while what was the Qs and SPY doing? Making new highs, right? Basing at the highs, moving from the bottom left to the upper right. So when we look at this Netgear, right, and it just can't get off the lows, it's a clear sign of weakness. Okay, did get a little bit of a gap down there as well. Okay, and then nice continuation. It's the kind of thing you want to try and hold till end of day if you can. And it looks like, yeah, I would have trailed maybe over 33.80. But the numbers that I had on this, the entry on the Netgear was 34.60 by 34.83. Okay, it was just a breakdown. Oh, yeah, and I went to go post this under 34.70, and as I was typing in the numbers, it just broke down. It's going to happen sometimes. You know, all sorts of challenges like that. You know, this TME was fine. It's not a big deal, but I had this called too for the afternoon, and I went to go cancel it for the room because we were running out of time, and I forgot to cancel it for myself. So, you know, it's because stuff like that can happen. Why I leave the audio alerts on, because this I wasn't even thinking about it. I told the room cancel, we're not gonna play this, and then I heard this go off and I realized that I was in it. In the end, didn't really do anything, which is fine. But you know, I was definitely looking for that in the afternoon to play on the TME. I like this daily a lot, right? Essentially doing a weekly buy setup, rising 20 MA. So actually it looks pretty good as a swing as well on the TME. Looks nice, right? So, you know, and that's good time frame alignment. I like this TME. It was a small gap up. So if you want to watch it for the next maybe hourly buy setup or some kind of swing play, you can. But that was meant to be a day trade, and just you know, meant to cancel it, and for everyone. It just didn't cancel it for myself, but in the end I just paid commissions at the end of the day. So yeah, not a big deal. I also did have the ZTO called, but the ZTO didn't trigger. So I wanted to get over these topping tails here. So this was this morning. We got in, yeah, right here. So we put in these topping tails, right? And we got over these topping tails. If we got over these topping tails, I was willing to look for more follow through long. I thought the daily, while a couple days up, I like the area it was clearing. I like the bit of price void above because this moved vertical. So I like to see more retracement of that move. Just never triggered. And so, you know, I got a really good question last week in coaching, and they were asking, you know, if you call a lot of things and a lot of things get canceled, is that because the market is acting unpredictably or sloppy? And, you know, my answer was no. Like, don't be discouraged that, you know, the play doesn't trigger. Of course, when you get ready to play the play, you know, what am I thinking? I'm thinking, all right, we get over this topping tail here, and when we get it back to up to the highs, we're going to look at, that's going to be 2 hours already, and then we'll hold on the daily for all the rest, and, you know, this is going to be a home run, right? That's what you're thinking. So when it doesn't trigger, it does feel a little bit disappointing, but I just, you know, wanted to make it clear not to be discouraged by that, because the reason that maybe half the time the calls get canceled is because I'm looking for something unique to happen. Something that says to me, proof that this deserves me to commit money to it. Okay? Like, if you had, just a simple strategy that said anytime a something with a topping tail gets taken out, right, then I want to be in it long. Or anything with a bottoming tail gets taken out, I want to be in it short. You could be in hundreds of plays a day, right? But I'm looking for something very, very specific, right? And so what we have, for instance, on this ZTO, right, is we have a pro gap up. First, we have a pro gap up over resistance. So that gives me a bullish bias. Once I have a bullish bias, I need to look for an entry. Now, I get an entry here. This is technically an entry, but what's the problem? Deep retracement. Retracement start with a wide range bar. So I want to look for a secondary entry. Okay, here it is on the 2 minute, same chart, right? 2 minute also got a pullback. I'm not in it here. Deep retracement, big topping tail. So I want a secondary entry. And once we got these equal highs, now I have my secondary entry. So that's the thought process. It all has to go in tandem, one after the other. I have the bias that's set from the gap. And then now I need to know when to get in and what will be my risk amount, how many shares, right? And that comes from the pattern, right? It's not necessarily that patterns are better or they have to work all the time. There is no pattern that's going to work 100% of the time, but what it does tell me is when I get in and where my risk will be. Okay, and where my stop will be. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up because as the TME was canceled, the ZTO was canceled, right? And it's not because the market is doing something wrong or these are doing something wrong. It's because I'm asking for something very specific, and you could say I'm even asking for a lot for these specific things to happen before I commit my money. Because if you had a very loose set of criteria, sure, you could be in hundreds of plays. And if that's your goal, I want to be in anything that could potentially work. That's going to be a different goal than mine, just to play high quality and so that I can produce consistency. Okay, so I thought, on a day like today, where I had a few things get called and then canceled, right? Just want to make sure that, don't need to read into it as any kind of something to be discouraged about or any kind of distrust towards the market. It's just I'm asking for certain things to happen in order for me to commit money to them. So I just wanted to go over that since the calls today didn't end up triggering. Okay, so and then the ONDK, a very nice gap berry here. Okay, close at the very low. So you can see kind of the similarities between the ONDK, the UAA, where we get the bias, what we want them to do to gap from clearing resistance and then going through and breaking support, right? I like to see that because that tells me anyone trying to buy it is being disappointed. Anyone that's in it from previous days is likely being disappointed on a symbol that they thought or a position they thought would be working out really well for them today. And so you just continue to get that selling as people call it quits on and accept that this is only going lower, right? And then shorts might have gotten shaken out by that gap, got to get back in. So nice little breakdown there on ONDK. So it looked like, today on the gap bullies and gap berries, the breakdowns were the entries today. So those are really just some of the really nice moves today. If you had the BRS available, this was an official call here from Sammy on the BRS from the morning with an ad into the afternoon. So some good stuff, a big difference from what we saw yesterday as far as the number of opportunities and even the quality of opportunities. So hopefully you were able to do well today. If not, we still have a few more days. Today is more what I would expect for the next few days. Okay, so just hang in there. Make sure you get your post-market work done, log your trades, and that you are all ready to go tomorrow. You don't want to leave any excuses for why tomorrow might not go well. Don't want to leave any rock left unturned. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's market wrap. We'll see what the market brings us tomorrow, but we are bullish. All right, so hope you have a nice day tomorrow, and I will talk to you then. Have a great evening.